All right, so this question comes up quite often. Christmas. Yeah, and it's only May, so I'm not going to go into super detail. I'm going to just rip through this, a few points. Let's dive in. People don't have to like it, but you'll know them by their fruits. So the bottom line is when you have somebody who continues to go into it, they don't want to accept what is written, then you can just realize immediately, okay, well, this person may profess to know Jesus, but they serve a different Jesus. It's Jesus they've made up in their own mind, not a Jesus of the Bible. And I'm here to tell you that it's Jesus of the Bible that saves, not all those other fakes and frauds. And so when you see certain things unfold, you can know them by their fruits. Right? When they say, well, you can't judge, then you really know they don't read their Bible. So let's see if they've read their Bible or not. In Jeremiah chapter 10, 2-5, thus saith the Lord, learn not the way of the heathen, and be not dismayed at the signs of heaven, for the heathen are dismayed at them. For the customs of the people are vain, for one cutteth a tree out of the forest, the work of the hands of the workmen with an axe, and they deck it with silver and gold, fasten it with nails and with hammers, that it move not. They are upright as the palm tree, but speak not, and they must needs be borne, carried, because they cannot go. Be not afraid of them. God himself names a tree cut from the forest, describes it as being decorated with silver and gold, and shows it fastened upright so that it stands, and calls the whole thing a heathen custom, and that it's vain. God never once said, redeem it, use it carefully, make it about Jesus in some way. He says, learn not the way of the heathen. Their customs are vain. Every time you cut, drag, stand, decorate a tree as a religious centerpiece in your home or in your foyer or in your supposed church building, whatever else, you're acting out a pattern that God has already condemned. That alone should be enough. But wait, there's more. Yeah, so Deuteronomy chapter 12, God forbids Christianizing, which you can't, pagan feasts, right? Deuteronomy chapter 12, when the Lord thy God shall cut off the nations from before thee, whither thou goest to possess them, and thou succeedest them, and dwellest in their land, take heed of thyself, that thou be not snared by following them, after that they have been destroyed before thee, and thou inquire that thou not, so take note, and that thou inquire not after their gods, saying, how did these nations serve their gods? Even so will I do likewise. Thou shalt not do so unto the Lord thy God, for every abomination to the Lord which he hateth have they done unto their gods. For even their sons and their daughters they have burnt in the fire to their gods. What things soever I command you, observe to do it. Thou shalt not add thereto, nor diminish from it. God forbids looking at pagan worship and asking, how did they do it? Copying their forms of worship for him. Even so will I do likewise. Adding anything to his commanded worship is a problem. Christmas is a textbook violation of Deuteronomy chapter 12, right? How did Rome keep Saturnalia and Sol Invictus? Evergreen trees, feasts, drunkenness, right? Gift, let's call it orgies, lights in the darkest days. Even so will we do likewise for Jesus. Really now? God's verdict on the situation isn't just be careful about it. Guard your hearts. Be careful. Make sure it's put Christ back in the season, or how is it they put that? Jesus is the reason for the season. No, he's not. He never has been. You can't put Christ back in Christmas because he was never in there to begin with. Read the book. He doesn't say be careful with these things. He says, thou shalt not do so unto the Lord thy God. It's amazing. Again, don't be frustrated. Just realize that you'll know them by their fruits. And so the whole world, man, there's like 2 billion professing Christians. Yeah. Many profess, but there are few who are actually in the faith. So let's take a look at Saturnalia a little closer. What are these people really doing? A winter festival for the sun god, or the god Saturn, I guess, depending on which angle you look at it from, characterized by drunkenness, public orgies, role reversals, gambling, different types of license for wickedness, debauchery, essentially, if you look closer. Masters and slaves would reverse their roles for a time, and then they would snap back to the original after the event. A week where in different things that were prohibited, don't worry about it. We're going to lower those things down. We're not going to go after that as much. Sins were laughed at completely. Everything is just for the gods. Do whatever. Sol Invictus, the unconquered sun, late Rome. This was an imperial cult of the sun. They pushed December 25th. They promoted it as the birthday of the sun. You wouldn't believe how many professing Christians will say, yeah, it's just, it's the birthday of the sun, S-O-N, and they don't even hear what they're saying. They have no clue. Almost like the sun that's in the sky. It was linked to evergreen symbols, right? Just this side of the flood, we have all the Nimrod stuff, right? The return of the light, all the sacrifices they would do to bring back the sun. What's happening? Evergreens, wreaths, candles, feasts in midwinter. They're not random. Right? How many times did they go out to the groves to commit their whoredoms? They were fertility and sun cult carryovers from throughout history. The ancient world used greenery in the dead of winter to shout, life survives death, essentially. Light in darkness, to hail the return of the sun. They had to bring it back up. They had to get the days longer again. So when Rome Christianized the empire, again, I use that term lightly here, Christianized, they had no power to do so. It did not burn Saturnalia to the ground like we see in Scripture. Instead, it just slapped Christ's Mass over top of it. The same date, the same season, the same basic structure with all the trappings, but a new label. God says the abominations those nations did is something that he hated. He links those abominations to burning their sons and daughters in the fire. Did you not hear me read a moment ago? Is that not lingering on your conscience? When you copy their feasts, their pattern of how they do things for the Lord, you're stepping onto the same altar where they burn their children, saying, we can use this for worship for Jesus. No, you cannot. Exodus chapter 32, a feast to the Lord that God hated. Do you remember that? Exodus chapter 32. It's a proof that, but it's for Yahweh, does not fix pagan forms. Exodus 32, 4-6 says, and he received them at their hand, and fashioned it with a graving tool, after he had made it a molten calf. And they said, these be thy gods, O Israel, which brought thee up out of the land of Egypt. And when Aaron saw it, he built an altar before it, and Aaron made proclamation and said, tomorrow is a feast to the Lord. They rose up early on the morrow, offered burnt offerings, brought peace offerings, and the people sat down to eat and drink and rose up to play. Very precise language there. They use God's name, Yahweh's name, a feast to the Lord. They credit God, which brought them up out of the land of Egypt. So there's no confusing God. That's what they're crediting here. They mix it with a pagan form, an Egyptian calf, the festive sin. They eat and drink and rose up to play. God's response? What did he say? They have corrupted themselves. They have turned aside quickly out of the way which I commanded them. Ooh, not on that straight and narrow, are they? He doesn't say, well, I know they mean well, or, oh, I know their heart. I'll accept it. I'll accept the form, I guess, this time, since their heart's in it for me. Where does it say any of that nonsense? It's not there. He judges them. Christmas is your golden calf feast, a man-made feast built out of pagan forms, labeled for Christ, mixed with gluttony, lust, covetousness, drunkenness. God is not honored. He's provoked by it. So, Mark chapter 7. That's where we're going to go next, verse 7 to 9. Howbeit in vain do they worship me, teaching for doctrines and commandments, or for doctrines, the commandments of men. Do I have to say anything else? Are you listening? For laying aside the commandment of God, do ye hold the tradition of men, as the washing of pots and cups, and many other such things like ye do. And he said unto them, full well you reject the commandment of God, that ye may keep your own tradition. Jesus himself, God, said, there is such a thing that is a form of worship that is vain. It's empty. There's nothing in it. People elevate their own traditions, doctrines of man, traditions of man, to a godly status, doctrinal godly status. They will literally, quite literally, reject God's clear commands to keep their customs. La 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 la. Christmas is held just like that. We see the text, Jeremiah 10, Deuteronomy 12, among other places. They're just waved away or re-explained. Don't worry about that. Tradition is defended as if it's doctrine. How? Well, good Christians celebrate Christmas. I think rejecting Christmas is quite extreme. It's quite legalistic. What? It's vain worship. You're caught up in vain worship. You reject the commandments of God, condemning yourself for the traditions of man. If you're gonna twist the Bible to protect your own lustful desire of your own feasts, your own traditions, then it's become your idol. Are you blind? You must be. The entire idea of Christmas, it doesn't scream the bride of Christ. It screams Babylon, whoredom, right? This is what's happening. Christmas today is a time of covetousness and it's debt. And, well, God calls covetousness idolatry. And a time of drunkenness and revelry. There's no question. God forbids rioting and drunkenness, chambering and wantonness in Romans 13. That happens all the time. A time of lying myths. Think about it. Santa, elves, reindeer, right? There's children that are discipled in fantasy while Jesus is just a side character once a year. A time of ecumenical unity takes place as well. Oh man, pagans, atheists, false religions, the apostate church, they're all in one. All gladly keeping a Christian feast. You drive around in December for 5 minutes, you see trees in every single window. None of those people are of Christ, but yet there they are. But if you read the Bible in public for a few minutes, people will come after you. Imagine. Revelation 18 describes Babylon. The merchants of the earth shall weep and mourn over her, for no man buyeth their merchandise any more. For the merchants were great men of the earth, for by thy sorceries were all nations deceived. Babylon marks specific things. These merchants were growing rich on religious consumption. They were consuming religious covered things. The nations were being deceived by her sorceries, her spell, her pharmakia, right? And that's already happening, obviously. But Christmas, this annual high feast of that system, merchants build their year around it. The same merchants that get rich off of everything else, pharmakia, you name it, the same guys are at the top of the list. If you look closely at who owns what companies, you'll see there's very few companies that own all of those branches, like an octopus with tentacles. The advertising manipulates your heart and mind. The churches, so-called churches, they cooperate. They turn their sanctuaries into massive stages for the entire season. Then they apparently they throw Christ's name on top of all of it, and everything's all good. It's right back to being a Christian celebration. Because of the time constraint with YouTube, I'm going to pause it here and start a little part 2 to finish up this short message on Christmas. But I mean, this already is just, it's mind-blowing. But at the same time, for true believers out there, just realize there's a very big difference, right? You'll know them by their fruit. And so if what you see, you can judge upon. But we'll continue. Just give me a moment.